A very good morning, dear students. How are you all doing? I am also doing very good. So let's start our today's class. Okay, right. So just observe this picture and do some activities that I am telling you, right? Raise your hands. Can you raise your hand? Okay, right. So just hold your hands, right? Move your neck, right? So we can do all this type of things, right? Okay. So here are some activities. So what is this person doing? These people are eating something, isn't it? These people are drinking something. So these two children are playing. This children is kicking the football. This child is making a painting. This child is playing table tennis, isn't it? This band is playing music. This girl is drawing something. This boy is cycling. This girl is reading. So we all do this type of several type of activities, right? So we do all this type of activities, right? So and to do all these activities, how it is possible that we do all these activities? Like suppose that I want to raise my hands, right? So how is that I am able to raise my hands? Yes, students. Yes? Okay, right. So basically, we can say that our body is also made up of cells. Very good. And those cells communicate into tissues, right? And those tissues are the reason that we are able to all do all these things, right? So you have seen about blood, isn't it? You have heard about blood. You have heard about muscles. Suppose that I want to lift my hand, then what is there? Then there are muscles. There are muscles here. There are muscles here. So from these things only, from these muscles only, I'm able to lift my hand, right? So let's start our today's class. So this blood and muscles, these both are example of what? Blood and muscles, these both are examples of the tissues found in our body, right? And on the basis of function, right? On the basis of function, we can differentiate animal tissues into different types, right? We can differentiate animal tissue into different types, namely, first of all, epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscular tissue, and nervous tissue, right? When we think about the blood, it is which type of tissue, students? Yes, it is a connective tissue. Do you know why it is a connective tissue? No? Okay, we'll study that in our next module, okay? Right. So students, what are the different type of tissues found in the animals? Who will tell me? What are the different types of tissues found in the animals? Yes, I'm giving you 30 seconds. You can think about it. Okay, so we can write different type of animal tissues as first of all, first is the epithelial tissue, and after that there is connective tissue, and after connective tissue there is what? There is nervous tissue, there is muscular tissue. So there are total four types of the tissues in the animals. Epithelial tissue, right? Then there will be connective tissue, then there will be muscular tissue, and then there will be nervous tissue. So these four types of the tissues are found in the animals. Okay, students. So shall we proceed ahead? Okay, right. So students, what can you observe from this picture? See, I have my hand here, isn't it? You are having your hand. So see, this is the covering of my hand, isn't it? This is the covering of my hand, right? So it is made from some type of tissues, right? So what it is made up of, students? Yes, it is made up of epithelium, right? It is epithelial tissues. Okay, right. So all the body coverings in our body, it is made from the epithelium. So it are present in every part, like you can see in air sacs of the lung. There is presence of tissues, right? There is presence of epithelial tissues. Then there is in respiratory tract also. Then in the kidney also. Then in the intestines also, right? So these epithelial tissues are present in all the parts of our body, right? So what are epithelial tissues, students? So epithelial tissues, right? So epithelial tissues are the covering or the protective tissues, right? So epithelial tissues are the covering or the protective tissues in the animal body, right? Okay, so first of all, epithelial tissues are the protective tissue or the covering in the animal body, right? So epithelium, so what epithelium does? Epithelium covers most of the organs or the cavities of our body. So you can see here that in the case of lung, air sacs of the lung, it is also lined by this epithelial tissue. Then in the kidney also there is presence of epithelial tissue. Then in the columnar tissue of the intestine it is there also. Then there is pseudostratified columnar epithelium in the respiratory tract also. So there are different types of epithelial tissues, and these epithelial tissues are there in almost all the organs of our bodies. It is present also in the different cavities within our body, right? And what is the function of epithelial tissues, student? It forms a barrier. What it does? It forms a barrier to keep different body systems separate, right? It keeps different body systems separate. Okay, right? The skin, the lining of mouth, the lining of blood vessels, the lung alveoli, kidney tubules are all made up of what? These are all made up of the epithelial tissues. Okay, students, right? Okay, let's proceed little bit forward. But before we can proceed forward, just quickly recap what we have learned till now. So till now, we have learned that the tissues in the animals can be broadly categorized into four types. First one is the epithelial tissue, second one is the connective tissue, third one is the muscular tissue, and fourth one is the nervous tissue. When we talk about the epithelial tissue, then it is the covering that covers all parts of the body or organs of the body. It lines all the cavities of the body, right? It is present where? It is present in the air sacs of the lungs. It is present in the lining of the mouth, lining of the blood vessels, lining of the alveoli, kidney tubules. These are all made from what? These are all made from the epithelial tissues. Okay, students, let's proceed forward. Okay, so the permeability of the cells of various epithelia, right? So there is what? Epithelium, we know that there is one covering across all our body, isn't it? Covering all our organs, covering all our linings, covering our body from outside also. So these cells, the permeability of the cells of various epithelia, what it does, it plays an important role, right? It plays a very important role in regulating the exchange of material, right? It does a very important role in regulating the exchange of material between the body and the external environment, and also between the different parts of the body. Suppose that I am taking in air, isn't it? I am taking in air, and that air is going where? That air is going into my lungs, and in my lungs there are air sacs, isn't it? So the diffusion of air, it has to happen through the epithelium, right? So the permeability of the various epithelia, this plays very important role in regulating the exchange of materials. Okay, students, right? Shall we proceed ahead? Okay, right. So there is one question for you. So epithelial cells, these are found where? Skin, lining of the mouth, lining of the blood vessels, or all of the above, right? Skin, lining of the mouth, lining of the blood vessels, or all of the above. Okay. So just think about this for 10 to 15 seconds and then answer this question. Okay. Okay, so epithelial cells are found in the skin, lining of mouth, lining of blood vessels. So D or all of the above will be the correct answer. Right. Now let's proceed forward. Friends, just observe this picture present in front of you and see what is shown in this picture. Yes, I'm giving you 15 seconds so that you can think about this picture in details. Okay, right. Okay, so this is of epithelium. Very good. This picture is of epithelium. The cells are closely attached together. Right. Okay. Let's see about the continuity of the epithelium tissues. Okay. Can you see these cells are like continuous and all? They are connected to each other. Yes. Right. So what is the function of the structures of the cell in the epithelial tissue students? Can you think about this? Okay, so the cells are continuous. Obviously, you can see from this picture, this picture, this picture, and this picture, the cells are continuous. Means the cells are attached to each other in a very close proximity. Right, students? Okay. Okay, we will now learn about the cellular structure of the epithelial tissues, right? So the epithelial tissues, the cells are tightly packed together and it forms a continuous sheet, right? The cells forms a continuous sheet. By the continuous sheet, what I mean? By the continuous sheet, I mean that the cells are so densely packed, are so tightly packed that it forms what? It forms a layer, isn't it? You can see there is one layer here, then you can see there is one layer here also. You can see one layer here also, right? You can see one layer here also, right? So I'll just remove it. Okay, right. So there is very little to no cementing materials. What is cementing material, students? So you can see these cells, you can see these cells, right? You can see these cells. So these cells are attached together very closely, right? These cells are attached together very closely, right? And there is almost no intercellular space present in between these cells, right? And when this type of situation arises that there is no intercellular space in between these cells, then what has to be done? Like suppose if there is something here, if there is something present here and it wants to go to this side, then what it has to do? It has to travel through the epidermis or through the epithelial tissue, isn't it? It has to travel through the epithelial tissue. Similarly, if there is something here and it wants to go here, then also what it has to do? It has to travel from here to here by crossing that layer of the epithelial tissue. Okay, students, right? So almost anything that is entering or leaving the body must cross at least through one layer of the epithelium. But we see that there is one outer epithelium, one is the inner epithelium also, right? So these are the four these are four different types of the epithelium, right? These are four different types of the epithelial tissues, right? So this one is the pseudo-stratified columnar epithelium. So what is pseudo-stratified? But before we go into those things, let's start with this simplest form. Epithelium, it is the very simplest epithelium made up of just only one layer of the cells with a bulge in the center, right? Then there is simple cuboidal epithelium. The cells are cube-like. Then there is simple columnar epithelium. The cells are column-like. Then there is a pseudo-stratified columnar epithelium, right? So these cells are only one layer thick, but it is appearing that it is having more than one layer. Okay, that's why it is called as pseudo-stratified columnar epithelium. Okay, students, right? So now let's proceed to our next portion. So there is a quiz for you. So this you have to describe the cellular structure of the epithelial tissue, right? Who will describe the cellular structure of the epithelial tissue? Yes, I'm giving you 10 seconds. Quickly think about it. Okay, so the cellular structure of the epithelial tissues are, first of all, it is very tightly packed, and when it is very tightly packed, it is forming what? It is forming a sort of sheet. Okay, it is forming a sort of sheet, right? There is a very little cementing material present in between them. There are no intercellular spaces present between them, and anything that has to go inside the body, it has to cross at least one layer of the epithelium, right? Suppose that this is the epithelium and this is something that wants to cross, then it has to cross at least through one layer of the epithelium. Okay, students, right? Shall we proceed ahead? Yes. Okay, right. So we have come to the end of our class today, and what we have learned in our today's class, students, we have learned about the epithelial tissues, right? We have learned about what? We have learned about the epithelial tissues. So, who will describe the characteristics of the epithelial tissues to me? Yes? Okay, so the characteristics of the epithelial tissues are they are tightly packed together and they are forming a sheet type of structure, isn't it? The epithelial tissues, these are packed very densely and forms a sheet type of structure. There is presence of very less or no cementing materials between them. Okay, and after that, what was there? Yes, recall students, what was there? Anything that has to cross the epithelium, it has to cross through at least one layer of the epithelium. Okay, and what about the intercellular spaces present in between the epithelial tissues? Yes, so there is almost no intercellular spaces present in between the epithelial tissues. Okay, students? Right. So, what are the function of the epithelium tissues, students? What are the functions of the epithelial tissues? Yes. First of all, it forms the barrier, it forms the covering, isn't it? It keeps the harmful things outside our body, right? It forms the lining of the mouth, lining of the blood vessels. So these are different functions of the epithelial tissues, right? Can we go through this once more? What are the functions of the epithelial tissues, students? Yes, first of all, epithelium covers most of the organs of our body, isn't it? Epithelium covers most of the organs of our body. It covers most of the cavities of our body. It forms the barrier. It forms the barrier that keeps the different body systems separated, isn't it? Like it keeps the uh, heart separate from the lungs, isn't it? So it keeps the different systems of the body separated. Apart from that, it forms the skin, it forms the lining of the mouth, lining of the blood vessels, lining of the alveoli, lining of the kidney. All these things, these are made up of what? Epithelial tissues. Okay, right. So, can you list different type of animal tissues, students? Yes, can you list different type of animal tissues? Yes, students, try to list different type of animal tissues. Okay, so how many type of animal tissues are there? Right, there are four types of animal tissues, and if we classify them, then first of all, we have studied about one type of animal tissues today, and that tissue is called as the epithelial tissues. After that, there is muscular tissue, there is connective tissue, and there is nervous tissue. Okay, we can remember this as NMEC. Okay, NMEC, NMEC. Okay, this is the trick to remember, NMEC. Okay, students. So let's proceed forward. So what you have to do as a homework is prepare a chart where you will be showing different type of the animal tissues, right? You will be showing different types of the animal tissues. You need to describe the functions of the epithelial tissues. Okay, students, you need to describe the functions of the epithelial tissues. Okay, so this is your homework for today, right? So how was the class today, students? If you really liked the class, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and also share it with with your friends, okay, so that they can also learn about this chapter. Okay, students. So I'm giving you 10 seconds. If you have any questions, you can just quickly raise your hands or tell me, sir, that I want to ask you some question. So there goes your 10 seconds. I'm giving you 10 seconds. After that, I will be ending the class. Okay. Okay, students. So there are no questions, I guess. So all of you have understood the concept of today's class very well. So let's end our today's class.